Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for January 21st, 2021. Well, welcome back, everyone. We have had quite a it was quite a Monday with a lot of news and things out there affecting the markets. The interesting thing this morning, probably most interesting, is that President Trump is not implementing tariffs right away. That created quite a move in the U.S. dollar, gapping us lower, but you can see then he started talking about February 1st, possible tariffs coming out, and we started to rally back up. So we'll want to keep an eye on that, creating quite a little bit of volatility in the dollar. How about we take a look at what happened overnight? Asian markets last night, they were mixed, but mostly okay. And Australia was up nicely. The Nikkei was up. India was down. So was South Korea. Hong Kong was up 0.91%, while Shanghai was lower by 0.05%. So kind of a mix, maybe a little bit of uncertainty. European markets are also mixed this morning. They earlier were mostly up. Now, I think it's just the uncertainty out there of potential tariffs. We've got the DAX just slightly lower, 0.09. FTSE ever so slightly lower, 0.03%, and the CAC ever so slightly higher, 0.04%. U.S. futures, we're bullish across the board here this morning, trying to pump into the open with a lot of earnings coming our way this morning, so keep an eye on that potential volatility and, of course, the uncertainty out there. Dow right now is pushing for a 142-point rally at the open. Current futures, we've got NASDAQ futures currently up at 1250, and that's the S&P 500 futures. The NASDAQ futures up 52 points at this very moment. If we were to take a look at bonds here this morning, bonds have been fluctuating around as well. If we take a look at the 2-year bond yields, they're at 4.27%, 10-year is at 4.59%, and the 30-year is 4.81%. So not exactly great, but they are much lower than they were at the high point last week. So we'll want to be keeping a close eye on that, because I would expect some volatility. Remember, markets hate uncertainty, and boy, do we have a basket full of it at the moment. Let's take a look at let's see that. Wait a minute. I think that, did I cover all? No, I didn't. I didn't cover everything. Let's take a look at oil. Oil this morning, we've got oil just a tiny bit lower at the moment. We are $2 lower at 75.40 a barrel right at this moment. So keep an eye on that. Brent crude this morning is also lower at 78.65 a barrel. And natural gas is also moving a little bit lower here this morning, pulling back after those recent highs. If we take a look at gold and silver, gold is moving lower this morning. Interestingly enough, we're seeing GLD pushing higher, while at the same time we've got gold futures down $16 an ounce this morning. Silver, however, right at the moment is only down a little over a penny here this morning at 31.13 an ounce. Copper's lower, platinum and palladium are lower here this morning as well. And if we take a look at those crypto markets, a lot of volatility came into those here just the last couple of days. Bitcoin at the moment, however, only down $216.73 a coin. Ether down 31.63 a coin. So a little bit of a little yawn there. A little bit of volatility, certainly still creating some issues here in the market, and that uncertainty that new policy, new administration, new policies can create. Let's take a look at some stocks here, our indexes. But before we do that, how about we settle in and let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these indexes, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to shake off that bias. We want to look at the stocks for what they are, not for what we want them to be. And if we take a look at the diamonds here, well, we're certainly pushing to that bullish side. Unfortunately, we've had this amazing stretch to the upside with really no pullback or test, which puts us in maybe a short-term overbought situation here in the market. But that being said, we're continuing to stretch higher, and you can see here in the chart breaking through this resistance in the chart, continuing to push. We have a little gap up in here that we've been struggling to fill, but the good news is we have been challenging this big black candle here, and it looks like the diamonds may have a chance of popping through that area here today if we continue to get good results in earnings and things like that. So watch that carefully. Watch that as we push on through that area. Our next level above, I think, is going to be somewhere up in here. It's not that much further, and then we'll start looking right up in here for those levels to the upside to see if we can continue that stretch. But remember, anytime we're stretched like this in the short-term move, if we do run into any bearish activity in here, I would not rule out the possibility of a fairly substantial pullback that could push us back at least down into this area price support, and maybe even push us back down into here. So watch that carefully. If we were to fall into this gap and start pushing down into here, I would expect some significant worry to come up in the market. So watch that carefully. And if we take a look at our SPY, breaking that downtrend, we are still working to try and break through up here. We will want to keep in mind if we can push up through this area, we still have this resistance and that big old black candle here that we need to break to the upside. So watch that carefully. It may be a little bit difficult to do that with all the uncertainty that we have in the market unless we really see these earnings coming in with huge results, and certainly possible. Let's take a look at the bearish side of this. If the bears were to have anything to say, well, you can see somewhere between here and here would be right in the area where we would be expecting some kind of little rest or pullback here from this amazing extension to the upside. And if we did start pushing back, well, remember, we've left gaps behind on these charts, so the move back could be a little bit painful as we start progressing back down through those areas of the chart. If we were happen to break down below this upside trend break, that's where we would really start to see some worry or pressure come into the market. And I don't want to suggest that's possible necessarily, except when we see all the uncertainty that the market is going to be dealing with here for just a little bit, wondering whether tariffs or no tariffs, what's the deal going on. It's certainly possible if those things start to come up. So make sure you're planning your trades very carefully. Make sure you have a plan to protect yourself due to the potential volatility and uncertainty in the market. If we take a look at QQQ, well, QQQ making another push here to the upside today. We still got some work here to do. We left a hanging man type pattern here, but remember, hanging man is going to require follow through to the downside. If we continue to push this to the upside, that kind of negates the hanging man, and we could push right into this next area of price resistance in the chart. Beyond that point, if those bulls can continue to push, maybe somewhere up here in the middle of this next range, and then we'll start looking, can we wipe out this big black candle here in the Qs? Remember, this is a pretty big extension as well in that move back up, and any pullback here in the market we'll want to be watching carefully. As we push back, we've got this little gap space in here that we could fill, and then we'll come back down and test this area of price support. Beyond that, there would probably be some worry in the market. And then, of course, our IWM still struggling with a lot of resistance here in the chart, and keep a close eye on that as we press all of these major areas of resistance. We've got price resistance here, trend resistance here, trend resistance here. Watch that area of the chart. But the good news is, if the bulls can continue to push, we're popping through this area this morning, and perhaps we'll reclaim this little area of support in the chart and see if we can start breaking through up into higher areas. Remember, we still have this big candle here to recover, so watch that closely, and it can be really difficult for IWM if the market is sucking all the money into the tech giants. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration in here, push back down below that area might raise a little concern, and I would suggest we could come down here, test this area of support, and maybe even move a little bit lower into this area and possibly even fill that gap. So watch carefully here, and that would create kind of a bearish looking pattern here overall in the Russell. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, our VIX had a nice little move on Friday, but at the end of the day, it ended up with that VIX popping back up, and you can see the bullishness here this morning. We've got a little bit of uncertainty here as well. We could still kind of cling to this area of this trend and price support here in the chart, and if those bears had anything to say here today, we'll want to watch this area here for that potential rise. So watch that carefully. But if those bulls can really engage and really follow through today, then that possibility will officially break this area, push on down, and we might catch some support down in here. So watch that carefully on the VIX. Now, our T2122 gives me the biggest concern right now here in the market. Our T2122, as you can see, we're stretched up here high, and this morning with this gap up open, we're going to be pretty much pinned on the ceiling here in T2122. Remember, this indicator can't go above 100, and so we're pretty elevated here in the short term. What that means is, if we get any kind of bearish inspiration here in the market, it may not happen today, but if we get any kind of bearish inspiration, we have opened a very big opportunity for those bears to push back here. So just remember that as we stretch and stretch and stretch. Be careful with the chase. We want that resting pullback in the market to occur to give us a lower risk entry here. And as we continue to push this to the upside, there's just not a whole lot of room up there in T2122. Now, if we take a look at our T2108, our T2108 had a really good move in there the last week, pushing us back up, but you can see still 37.25% of the stocks holding above the 40-day. That's a pretty tough case to make a super bullish look at the market with less than 40% of the stocks holding above their 40. But watch that carefully. With a bullish push this morning, we may break this resistance and maybe start pushing back up through this area, and we might even be pushing up here to approach that 50% area, and that would relieve quite a bit of pressure here in the market. So watch that. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration, we'll note that we have all of these areas of price support in here that could be tested if the bears were to get going. Our T2107, much better than the T2108. You can see we're at 47.5% of the stocks holding above their 200-day or reclaiming their 200-day in here. We broke a little resistance here at the end of the day on Friday, pushing back up through there, and just realized the next area of resistance up here is right around 50%. So with a good push today, we might be up here testing that 50% or even pushing through, which again relieves a lot of concern or worry in the market if we can hold above those areas. And our T2101 remains my major concern here in the market. We have not seen good breadth following with this big rally in the market. The breadth just isn't there. Part of that reason is the blackout period here in the market and just those uncertainties out there that still linger even after the inauguration. So watch that carefully here in the market. We'll have to keep a close eye on this. We really need to see a bit more breadth following through with this bullish move, or we risk that potential that the bears, when they push back, they could push back pretty hard. So watch that closely. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, we've got a very light day here for us. We've got some settlements in here going on. We've got some bond announcements, and we've got a 3, 6, and a 52-week bill auction. That's the size of it for today. And if we look into Wednesday, we've got mortgage applications, our normal Atlanta business inflation expectations, leading indicators, some more bond auctions in here on Tuesday, with the 20-year being the important one to pay attention to. On Wednesday, we've got jobless claims, natural gas, Thursday, jobless claims, natural gas in here. Kansas City Fed manufacturing number, some bond auctions, the petroleum status number, and a 10-year tips in there to keep an eye on. And then coming into Friday this week, we've got our biggest day of data with our PMI composite in here, existing home sales, consumer sentiment, and a Baker Hughes rig count. So pretty light week on the economic calendar, with really nothing in here for the market to get too excited about. However, on the earnings calendar, we do have a few things to get excited about, with quite a few potential earnings here today, and they're going to continue to ramp up. So one of the things I want to remind everyone is to make sure you know where that link is below the title of the video. That'll take you back to the morning blog, where you'll be able to catch the full list of notables, because soon I will not be able to cover them all in the morning prep video. If we take a look today, though, the notables for this morning, we've got 3M reporting a nice pop there in 3M this morning. Keep an eye on that. We've got Schwab reporting today. We'll want to watch that. CBU is in there, a gap down and a bounce right back up here on this regional. Watch that closely. FBK also reporting. We've got Key Bank in here. Little pop and drop going on there. EDU will be reporting. ONB, PEBO. We've got Progressive in there today, and PLD for those notables here this morning. Now this afternoon we have quite a few as well, with probably the most notable being Netflix. Will be reporting in there, and besides that, we've got things like IBKR, PNFP, we've got STX in there, UAL, Zion Bank is in there, PGRS. There we go. No, PRG. Yeah, PGRS. I must have I'm going to have to check that ticker. I'm not getting that one to come up. Maybe I've got a mistake in the blog, so I'll have to check that. So keep an eye on those for today. Quite a few earnings reports, or really the ramp up has begun on the earnings. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful, well, you know what to do. Click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel as much as about anything else. Thank you so much to everyone who does participate in that. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are truly awesome. And remember, you can also support the channel with the Buy Me a Coffee link below the title of the video. Thank you to everyone who does that. And just by clicking that link and sharing it out on your social media feed, that also helps a ton in sharing these videos with more folks. So thank you, everyone, for your time and effort there. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very careful in this market, expecting considerable volatility as we ramp up into earnings and this uncertainty on tariffs or no tariffs, tariffs or no tariffs. We'll want to watch that pretty closely. Occidental, take a look at this. Although we've got oil pulling back a little bit this morning, Occidental, I placed an alert on this on Friday. Beautiful little setup here in the chart. If it can hold this area of price support, you can see we have a relatively tight area in here, relatively tight place to enter that trade, to stop out if we're wrong. But there is a nice little opportunity there in Occidental. Keep an eye on that. I got to tell you, we can look at so many of these. EQT making new highs, a little resting pattern in here that could set up. ConocoPhillips, nice little push up here in Conoco, a rest or pullback would set up an opportunity there. We've got ExxonMobil made that nice push up. Now we're testing this downtrend here in the chart. Watch that carefully. A little rest or pullback, I think, would set up the opportunity. And even if we take a look into some of the exploration and refiners, take a look at VLO, Valero pushing up through this resistance in the chart. Now any rest or pullback would set up an opportunity here if it can hold that support. Things like Rig making a move back up, putting in a nice little consolidation move. It tried to go the other day, get something going, but it tagged that resistance up here and pulled back. So as long as we can still hold this area of support in here, I would watch for that. All we need is a good bullish push here in the market, and we might pop right through that resistance here and get things going here on Rig. So keep an eye on that. A little cheapy guy, but could be a nice potential trade. Let's take a look at a few others in here. You know, Ralph Lauren continues to be a very bullish chart, holding in there nicely, pushing through, just staying very concise in its price action, and that opportunity that could push on through to the upside. So watch that closely. Costco pushing up here, had a little W formation, but then we got some news today. Watch this carefully in here. Could create some volatility because the Teamsters are looking at the end of the month of maybe pushing Costco into a full strike. They have approved the strike at the end of the month if they don't come to an agreement in here. So watch that carefully on Costco. Nice little W bottom formation though. RTX, take a look at RTX. Whoops, that's not RTX. RTX has made a really strong move here recently, pushing back up in the chart. Now this is aerospace and defense. We usually are a little bit uncertain on the aerospace and defense in these times of conflict around the world. But nice push here to the upside. Any rest or pullback in here, I think, could set up an opportunity in RTX. Keep an eye on that. And you could even take a look at stocks like Lockheed Martin, making a nice push back up, breaking that downtrend, holding in there, really bullish pattern. Northrop also making that push, trying to break through. You can see breaking that downtrend here, pushing through to the upside. So something is going on here in the aerospace defense area. Watch that closely. Let's take a look at some of the big tech items in here. Google has been flirting with this resistance up here in the chart. Now, it may have to wait all the way out to its earnings on 2/4. But watch that closely. If we can get a little bullish push in here, we might push this out and maybe defy these shooting star tops in here and push that right on through. We're certainly holding these higher lows in here as we're wedging in this upside triangle. So watch that carefully on Google. I got to tell you, we can't say the same for AMD. I'd be watching here for that potential of AMD running into quite a little bit of resistance here in the chart, and that possibility that AMD may roll over. They continue to get downgrades here overall, and you might have heard there was a downgrade here in Apple, and an underperform downgrade, which we haven't seen in Apple for a long time. It's feeling some bearishness here this morning. We're pushing into an interesting area of price support, because my goodness, if we fall off of that ledge right there, there could be a pretty hard move down in Apple if it falls off of there. So watch that closely on Apple. Microsoft, however, trying to push back up here, breaking the downtrend here in the chart. So I think a rest or pullback in here might set up an opportunity there in Microsoft. I would keep a close eye on that. Other places here, I think we're going to be in pretty good idea to keep an eye on gold and gold miners, silver miners out here as we continue to push up here. Gold trying to test this resistance in the chart. Now we're getting that little pullback here today, but watch that carefully. Still holding this little upside trend in here, looking pretty good overall. Silver maybe a little bit more on the questionable side as we are coming up, trying to just sneak out from underneath that downtrend at the moment. But you can see we're making those higher lows. We broke through some resistance, trying to hold it in here as support. So watch that if that were to get going to the upside. And remember, if we're not going to raise tariffs, then look for the dollar to fall. If the dollar falls, gold, silver are likely to move sharply higher. So watch that carefully here in that potential of gold and silver. May have some upside opportunity if those bond yields start to come down and we start to see that dollar pulling back. So watch that closely. So with that, everyone, there's a few things for you to take a look at and keep an eye on. I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Sorry I'm a little bit tongue-tied this morning. I guess I just got a little bit too much relaxation on the 3-day weekend. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Wednesday morning. Have a great day, everyone.